Hello everyone, welcome back. So, there's been quite a lot of discussion lately about the Pyro Archon who's coming out. And of course this is mainly based on leaks, calcs of leaks, analysis, drip marketing and all that good stuff. Now what seems to be the case is that the loud, possibly majority opinion, I don't know, it's hard to say when we're specifically discussing leaks of course, is currently not quite happy with the current state of Mavuika. And for that I want to discuss how I feel about Mavuika based on my understanding of her kit. So this video is going to be very leak heavy. Obviously if that's not something that you want to hear about, then you should stop watching this video right now. Hoyo should be getting ready for the next announcement live stream coming soon, possibly this Friday. So of course I'll be doing a watch party for that live stream, so if you want to make sure you know when that comes out, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you can be notified when that, as well as other videos, will go live on the channel. Okay, we ready? All the folks who don't want leaks are gone? Okay, let's get into it. I'm going to be tackling 3 key points. Number 1, people wanted Mavuika to replace Bennett and Xiangling. Number 2, there's this whole thing about team restrictions. Number 3, there's this whole thing about Mavuika's bike seeming to be wildly out of place. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. Before we begin, yes, I am going to briefly pretend that Bennett is a thing that exists in the game, okay? Allegedly. Make sure you found yourself somewhere comfortable to sit for this particular section. Here we go. A lot of people, myself included, were hoping that Mavuika would be this incredible support character that would effectively be the Bennett and Xiangling replacement for Pyro mains especially. This would of course bring her in line with the likes of Nahida and Farina, but instead we kinda got the Pyro answer to the Raiden Shogun, because Mavuika is a character who apparently, according to TGS, can do some particularly good off-field damage, whilst apparently having, according to Zajeff, possibly still overtuned on-field damage. So her supportive capability does of course come from her ult, which is kind of reversed Yalan, in the sense that it gives a great big front-loaded damage percent buff, and then it slowly drains over time until it reaches 0. And she doesn't heal. So unfortunately, by every way, shape or form, Mavuika is not a Bennett replacement, okay? But that's okay, because you shouldn't be playing Bennett in the first place. A character with no drip, no friends, no animation flare, no VFX, no relevance to the story, nothing but a slightly larger attack buff. Boring. Play Sarah or Chevy instead. They're much more fun, they're much more interesting, they actually have drip, they actually have friends, they have animation flare, they're, you know, story relevant, and of course, they don't make you get blown up by Tulpa. So there we go. So then all eyes went to the idea of whether or not Mavuika could replace Xiangling, because we're all sick of Xiangling. We want to play Yoimiya, our Xiangling does more damage. You know this copy-pasta. Recently, TGS actually released an entire video comparing Xiangling with Mavuika using various calcs of various teams, and according to him, Mavuika can actually do a bit more damage than Xiangling despite Xiangling hitting more times. Because both Mavuika and Xiangling don't seem to have ICD on their main off-field damage. So that's really, really good. But if you were to ask me who's better, Mavuika or Xiangling, my answer is very easily Mavuika with no problem whatsoever, and it's for one very simple reason. It's best often summed up with something that I often say, 3000 ER. So to me, Mavuika does seem like a Xiangling upgrade in just about every team that I ever would run a solo Pyro off-fielder in, because Xiangling's insane ER requirements pretty much lock her out of, let's say, Mualani and Neuvillette teams, despite the meta nerds constantly running her in there for some bloody reason. Look, you guys are really, really trying to keep Xiangling relevant in Mualani teams. 3000 ER is a problem, okay? Relax. The higher is actually unironically better. It's mainly rational and overload Raiden hyper, if you will, where I would probably stick to running Xiangling over Mavuika though, and that's because as far as I can tell there's going to be some major anti-synergy between the Raiden Shogun and the Pyro Archon. I'll of course be testing this anyway, but as far as I can tell, Mavuika will not be getting any fighting spirit from A's abilities because A batteries energy, not fighting spirit, and in a similar case, because Mavuika is using fighting spirit instead of energy to pop her ult, there's a good to fair chance that A is not going to be getting resolve stacks from Mavuika's ult. So it might be rather scuffed to run them both together in, let's say, a Chevy Overload team, especially for C0 Shoguns, right? But Mavuika is coming out next year at the top of the year, in fact, so we will be finding out on New Year's Day how she feels.
Great names echo! Bring it! Time to shine! Yoo-hoo! Let's get it on! Now you shall perish! There is no escape! You asked for it!
Speaking of fighting spirit, I'd of course be remiss if I were not to bring up the concern from Arlecchino mains feeling like Father is about to get power crept, especially when there's a rumor that there is a Father rerun incoming at the same patch. So, here's the thing. As far as I can tell, normal attack Mavuika does not power creep Arlecchino, because she does not do as much damage to Arlecchino. It's specifically spin to win Mavuika, which is charge attack Mavuika, that power creeps Arlecchino. But that doesn't mean that Arlecchino is completely done. Far from it, in fact. Because what this means is that if you want to optimize the damage with Mavuika and Arlecchino in, let's say, Vape teams, well, Arlecchino actually has options like Xingqiu, Yalan, and Cease's Candace, as well as other options for off-field Hydro application. Mavuika, with her spin to win, just simply cannot use these characters. She is effectively stuck, if you will, with characters like Mona, Fulia, Ayato, and Farida, who Arlecchino can use as well, by the way. Yes, she can. You can play Arlecchino with Farida. Yes, she can. Essentially, Mavuika at the present moment doesn't have as many off-field Hydro applicators to run with as Arlecchino, plus they have very different playstyles. So, you know, I get the feeling that at the end of the day, they're going to end up being, like, similar. You don't necessarily have to skip Arlecchino if you have Mavuika. That being said though, Mavuika does have more versatility in her kit because obviously Arlecchino is not going to be doing any off-field pyro damage anytime soon. But that's not the only team restriction that Mavuika has. There's been a lot of discussion about how she's going to be very reliant on Natlan characters because of her fighting spirit, which is overwhelmingly generated by her and her teammates draining Night Soul points. And this is when we get into my personal disappointment with Mavuika's kit. Mavuika does not give non-Natlan characters some Night Soul points to play with, which is a problem because I had built a full set for Obsidian Aloy and I can't use it on her. Madge! So Mavuika's ult requiring 200 fighting spirit, of which 1 fighting spirit is gained for every Night Soul drained. Well, I'd say 0 at the very least. What this means is that Mavuika's skill drains 80 points, which would give her 80 fighting spirit, but she needs 100 to even just activate her ult, with a maximum of 200 stored. So that means the more you have stored when you use her ult, that actually results in a bigger damage percent buff from her ult, as mentioned earlier. What does this mean? Well, it simply means that Mavuika is probably going to be tied very heavily with Natlan characters that can generate a lot of fighting spirit, and there is one in particular at the present moment who's really good at this, and that is of course the illustrious Xiangling. In a similar way to how I guess people pretend that Xiangling is allegedly tied heavily to Bennett. For the record, she is not. You can play Xiangling with A and Chevy and you'll have an absolutely better time playing the game anyway. But the reason why Mavuika may be quote-unquote tied to Xiangling is of course because Xiangling can easily spend 90 Night Soul, if you're in support Xiangling mode, by doing 2 kicks after her skill on a 7-second cooldown. And because of that, there's been a fair bit of people complaining because they don't have Xiangling. But why do you not have Xiangling? A character who's amazing. She has amazing drip, amazing friends, and spoilers for the Shillinan story quest, she's basically now an adoptive single mother, so that's really, really cool. She's the lead blacksmith of Natlan, you know, she has a job, a real one for that matter, and she's the Kazuha who heals. So she's already very, very strong to begin with, and she's very versatile indeed. She is, in my opinion, the second strongest character in the game. Why don't you have her? Are you griefing? Now, if you're trying to play a team with Mavuika and she's the only Natlan character, yeah, I think it's going to be very hard to get her ult out with some regularity, much less trying to get the full power of her ult, of course. One such example may be Chlorant Chaos. I've heard that Chlorant herself may be able to generate around 28 fighting spirit per rotation with her normal attacks, because that's the other way of generating her fighting spirit, to use normal attacks. So maybe with enough skill and finesse you can get away with using Mavuika's ult on the regular. It's just going to be at like half power with regards to her buff at the very least, especially if you're playing TF Chlorant. We'll find out when, of course, Mavuika drops. But that being said, this might be perfectly fine balance-wise, because then you have a reason to actually run Sacrate or C2 the higher instead. You know, the higher is not completely out of the question. Meanwhile, teams with Natlan characters should be absolutely perfectly fine. Obviously, Shillinan is going to probably be very much, by far, the best fighting spirit generator in the game, but let's not forget Autodon and Kachina exist, who can spend Night Soul points off-field, which could be really, really good, because then you can have them spending Night Soul points alongside Mavuika. Morlani teams can, of course, fit Shillinan, but putting Shillinan aside for a second, you still have Morlani, who drains a lot of Night Soul points on the regular. Kinich also drains 20 Night Soul points per big cannon, and he usually uses his big cannon, if my understanding of Kinich is correct. So as far as I can tell, with regards to the Natlan DPS characters, I suspect the one who actually will struggle the most is going to be DPS Shillinan, because DPS Shillinan doesn't actually drain that much Night Soul by herself. But when you're playing DPS Shillinan, you're probably bringing Kachina along, so you at least have Kachina assisting in the fighting spirit generation. At the end of the day, all of this is just me guessing though, and I'll certainly be testing everything that I could think of when Mavuika drops.
Transfixed. The magic flames boil. The night is cold. Stars should busted. Quietly now. Here comes the catch.
Finally, we have Mavuika's motorcycle, or rather her jet-powered dragon head motorcycle. Now, this thing flies, swims, and climbs, but not as much as Chaska, Morlani, or Shillinan, so as to not power creep them in the exploration front. But this is a motorcycle for someone from a nation of tribes. So does this feel completely weird? In my opinion, no, not really, and let me explain why. There are, first of all, 3 very key reasons why I don't think this feels out of place. Number 1 is Shillinan. Shillinan is solely responsible for amazing inventions like Chaska's flying gun. Chaska flies around on a gun, and you're getting mad about a motorcycle? Second thing is that Natlan, for those who actually pay attention to the lore, is built upon the ruins of a dragon kingdom, I believe, or something to that effect. And the Dragon Kingdom had a lot of super high-tech stuff, including allegedly rockets that could go into space. Lore enjoyers probably recognize that a motorcycle in this particular premise, the least surprising thing ever. And then thirdly, I also want to mention that Khaenri'ah exists. Or existed, at the very least. A nation 500 years ago, before it got ruined by the Abyss, that had field tillers and massive ruin golems and all that other crazy thing, as well as, let's not forget, we just came out of Fontaine, a nation of Robocops. Oh, and don't forget that in Sumeru we fought the Scaramecca. Hello? None of these things exist even in the real world. And of course, fourthly, this is the fourth thing, because speaking of the real world, here's the thing. Some people reckon that modern technology, like a motorcycle, just doesn't fit in a nation of tribes. But if you have actually gone outside of your own country for about 3 seconds, you may see that these two seemingly diametrically opposing concepts coexist all the time in other nations. And that can, of course, be best described as the duality of man. On the one hand, we have a nation that is technologically advanced, a military superpower, a cultural zeitgeist for the past 60, 70 years. But on the other hand, its people can't afford healthcare. I am, of course, referring to the third world nation known as the United States of America. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, we have a nation that is a nation of shrines and rigorous spirituality permeating throughout society. Whilst having trains that are fast and can actually run on time, Sydney Rail, take note, toilets that can clean your ass, and the entirety of Akihabara. You know what I'm talking about. Okay? So, at the end of the day, this idea that an Archon of a nation of tribes is riding around on a motorcycle, when she's Mavuika, a biker chick who looks like a biker chick, who has always looked like a biker chick, not that surprising.
Silence!
Thank you for pulling me. Scratch it. Princess must go on. Diana Special. The Temple of Wisdom. Wakula.
Settle down! The tides beckon.
Thank you for pulling me. Scratch it. Show us talent. Having your dream. Huh. Everyone hold hands.
Silence!
Banquet must go on. Committed to memory. Shaken and stirred. Banquet must go on. Sharing my knowledge.
Bow your head.
Diana Special. The banquet is nearing its end.
Let the mighty be humble.
Kept alive.
At the end of the day, I still remain quite excited for the Pyro Archon, and based on some of the analysis that I've seen, I reckon we might not be getting a Xiangling incident again. Instead, look, she's not 100% what I was hoping for. Again, the whole giving the team Night Soul would have been fantastic so I could play Obsidian Aloy, but I guess that's not a thing. But if she were to get any buffs, because some people for some reason think she needs buffs, I would, I guess, hope that her off-field pyro can happen a little bit faster. But I don't know. I just don't know if that's really all that necessary. Let me know about all of this in the comments below. What do you feel about Mavuika? Do you have any major disagreements with anything that I've brought up with this video? With, of course, the exception of all the Bennett talk. Everything I said about Bennett is correct. You should never be playing him. Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, look, it's getting to the time where we will probably be looking at teams that we want to be looking into with Mavuika, so I'll of course be doing that video at some point next week. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, or potentially even Warframe 999 action now that that's come out. Or until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Let the world collide! Letting great names echo! You can't run! Shimmer! Let's get it on! You asked for it! Let the mountains be spoiled! Let my name echo in song! Use your judgment! Punishment! Wakula! Dead meat! You asked for it.
Let's move onward, friends. Onward.